Hello everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, based on the region from where you are joining this session. Without any further delay, let's get started with our webinar today, that is the Headless Commerce. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so to get started, let us see what is Headless Commerce. So the word Headless Commerce might sound interesting for some of you. It might sound interesting for some of you, the Headless Commerce, right? So to start with, let us see what is the Headless Commerce in Salesforce, right? So in the Headless Commerce architecture, the front-end layer and the back-end layer are completely decoupled. So when you look at SFRA, the back-end and front-end, these two are very tightly integrated with each other. So if we are doing any back-end changes that may impact the front end, and if you are doing any front end changes, that cannot be done without making any changes to the back end, right? So in case of the Headless Commerce, these two layers are decoupled, right? So let us talk about what is head, right? The head is nothing but the front end, which is the customer facing application. It can be a website, it can be a mobile app, it can be a social channel where the commerce is enabled. It can be anything that is customer facing where the commerce is enabled and customers can go on shop. So that is nothing but the front end, and which we call it as head. And the back end is still the Salesforce Commerce Cloud. But if you look at this architecture, if at all we need to display some data, it could be the product information, the price information, and the inventory information, things of that nature on the front end, there should be some data source. The data source is still the backend, which is the Salesforce Commerce Cloud, and the front end is here, and the APIs here will bridge the gap between the front end and the backend. So what are these APIs? So it is a combination of the Open Commerce API, otherwise called as OCAPI, and the Storefront Commerce API, otherwise called as the SCAPI, right? So to summarize, in case of the headless architecture, the front end and back end are decoupled entirely, and the APIs like the OCAPI and SCAPI that will bridge the gap between the front end and the back end. And the head is nothing but the front end. So let's move on to the next slide. So something similar to the SFRA or the earlier version, that is Site Genesis. So these two are the reference applications using which we can start a project by taking the Site Genesis or the latest SFRA as a base. So something similar to that, we have something called PWA Kit, the Progressive Web App Kit, and this will act as a base for any headless architecture implementation, right? So I will go through how to set up this PWA Kit in your system, and how to enable the features within this PWA Kit. We'll talk about that, and let us try to understand how the PWA Kit will interact with the Salesforce Commerce Cloud platform. So now, if you look at this architecture diagram, so we have the B2C commerce platform here, so which is the cart, payment, pricing, promos, whatnot, everything. So right, this is the Salesforce Commerce Cloud platform, and the APIs like the OCAPI or SCAPI will sit here, that is B2C Commerce API. And if you look at the SFRA is very tightly integrated with the platform, right? So the SFRA comes with both backend and also the front end. So it is very tightly integrated with the platform, and if you look at the PWA Kit, it is separated from the platform. And the partner built head, this is nothing but the front end. And for the front end, it can be in any technology, in any front end framework. It can be in React, it can be in Flutter, it can be in any front end technology that the merchant or the developer is comfortable with. And if you look at this, the B2C commerce APIs will supply the data that is required for the head, which is nothing but the front end. So now, for example, let us take home page. In the home page we do have the mega menu where we need to display the categories, right, and there are maybe the promotional messages, things of that nature, and that data will be supplied to the front end by using this B2C commerce APIs. So here there is something called managed runtime. We will talk about it. What is this managed runtime? And App Exchange, it is a place where you can find the connectors like the link cartridges and the PWA kit. So let us talk about the PWA kit in detail. So the progressive web app kit, right? So the progressive web app kit is a reference application provided by Salesforce, something similar to the SFRA or Site Genesis, and PWA kit uses the headless architecture. So now this PWA kit front end is built using the React.js and the backend is still the Salesforce Commerce Cloud. So now the Salesforce Commerce Cloud will supply the data, whatever is required, that needs to be displayed on the front end to the PWA kit, and the PWA kit will render that information on the front end by using the React.js. So now let us talk about what is this managed runtime. See, if you look at the headless architecture, as I mentioned, the backend is completely separated from the front end, and if you look at it, the backend is still running on the Salesforce Commerce Cloud servers, right? So there is no difference here. Whatever the advantages we get as part of the Salesforce Commerce Cloud, and that those advantages like the elastic nature, the performance, things of that nature, that is still applicable for the backend, because the backend is still running in the Salesforce Commerce Cloud. Now if you look at the front end is built on a different technology, is not using the ISMLs, things of that nature, right? It is built on probably the React, or it can be Flutter, whatever. So now we need a server where this front end should be running, right? So this front end, if you want, you can choose your own server like Apache Tomcat, right, or any other server you are comfortable with to run this front end application like the React applications. But the problem here is that if you go with your own your own server, then you are responsible for maintaining that server, the uptimes, downtimes, if there are any fluctuations, things of that nature, right? So to answer this question, the Salesforce comes up with its own deployment infrastructure, right? The managed runtime, it is a cloud-based application using which you can host your front end, right? So now you have two things. One is the backend, the other one is the front end. And the backend, it is still running on the Salesforce Commerce Cloud servers, and for the front end, you can choose to go with the managed runtime. So the managed runtime, it is a infrastructure where you can host your front end application, and as you know, it is a cloud-based application, so you do not need to worry about maintaining this managed runtime, and Salesforce will take care of it. If there are any updates, if there are any security patches, everything will be owned by the Salesforce, and we do not need to worry about maintaining this managed runtime application. So now going with the managed runtime provides some advantages. So you have the server ready, that is managed runtime, using which you can host your front end. You do not need to set up a server where you want to host your front end application, right? You have everything here. So obviously you go ahead and use this managed runtime, which will reduce the go to market. Now since it is a cloud based application, Salesforce will take care of the maintainability, uptimes, things of that nature. So historically it provides 99.9% availability, so there will not be any interruptions or downtimes hardly. And since you have a solution where you can host your the front end, and peacefully you can focus on the innovation, right? So building the front end in a better way, adding more features which will increase the customer experience on the website than maintaining the servers. So that is the slash time to market, enhance trust and scalability, and add flexibility. So now, so there is a theory. So far we discussed about what is headless, right? So headless is basically separating the front end layer from the back end layer, and the front-end layer. To host your front-end layer, you can still use the managed runtime, and the back-end layer, it will still use the Salesforce Commerce Cloud. And now, as we discussed, there is a reference application called PWA Kit, right, provided by Salesforce, using which you can start your PWA Kit applications, right? So now, let us see how to set up this PWA Kit in your system on your own, something similar to your SFRA application in your system. So I'm going to use my sandbox. Let me log into this. So meanwhile, if you have any questions, please note them, and we will have a Q&A session where I will try to answer all of your questions. So this is the sandbox using which I'm going to set up the PWA Kit. So now, before we move on to the setup process, we need to collect some details from about this sandbox to set up the PWA Kit, right? So now, here are the details that I need. So what I need is the sandbox URL. So the sandbox URL, you need to take everything including the protocol till the salesforce.com. If you are using a POD sandbox, then it will be till demandware.net, right? I'm using a on-demand sandbox. You can also use your POD sandbox, the earlier versions of the sandbox, if you want to set up PWA Kit using that sandbox. So this is the sandbox URL, and go to administration in your business manager, and then go to the manage sites, and for which site you want to set up this PWA Kit, right? So I want to set up this PWA Kit for my site, let us say RefArc. So this is the site ID for which I want to set up the PWA Kit. That is the site ID. Now go to the administration, site development, and then Salesforce Commerce API settings. So here you will see couple of things. One is organization ID. So we need this organization ID to set up the PWA Kit. So copy this organization ID. So I'm just noting down in my notepad so that I can try to avoid switching between the tabs, right? So this is the organization ID, and shortcode. We need this shortcode as well. So by default, it will not display the shortcode here, something like organization ID. You can click on request shortcode here, and that will get you the shortcode. You need to copy this shortcode. Please be informed, if in some of your sandboxes, especially the POD sandboxes, it may not show you the shortcode directly here even after clicking get shortcode, right? Instead of that, it may show you a error message saying please contact your administrator or please contact your support. In those cases, you can go ahead and raise a support ticket, and support team will be able to provide the shortcode for you. So for now, I'm going to copy the shortcode, whatever I'm getting here, the shortcode. Okay, and apart from this, we need client ID. So what is this client ID? That we will see in a minute. So now I have provided some URL here in the notes. You can use this URL to log in to the SLAS admin UI. Okay, so you can copy this URL, put it in the browser, and you need to replace the shortcode. You need to replace the shortcode with the shortcode that you have in your business manager. So replace the shortcode here and hit enter. So this will take you to the SLAS admin UI login page. Click on SLAS admin UI login, and that will take you to the account manager login if you are not logged in already. If you are already logged in, then it will directly go to this page. So if you are seeing the account manager login, go ahead and log in with your account manager username and password, and once you log in, this is the screen that you will see. Now go to the clients here. I already have one client ID generated here. If you want a new client ID, click on add client. Okay, click on add client, and you need to enter the tenant ID here. Your tenant ID is nothing but your realm ID, and your sandbox number. So you can also see ZYEU_001 is my tenant ID here. Okay, so don't worry about all this information. I have provided some reference links at the end of this presentation, so where you can find all this information, right? So what is organization ID, what is shortcode, what is the sandbox URL, things of that nature. So for now, remember, ZYEU is the realm name and 001 is your sandbox number, and this is your tenant ID. You need to put that tenant ID here, and you do not need to change any of this, and this is your client ID, and submit, and you can go ahead and use that client ID. Alright, so all you need to enter manually here is that your tenant ID. Your tenant ID is nothing but, you can see the format here in the tooltip, realm_instance, and in this case ZYEU is my realm and 001 is my instance. So now let me go back. So I'm not generating a new client ID here, I'm using the existing client ID. If you want, we can also generate the new client ID. It will work for both the client IDs if you have multiple. So now this is the client ID that I have generated. So now we have all the information that is required to set up PWA Kit in your system. Now you can go to your VS Code, or you can directly use your command prompt to make it simple, right? So now in the VS Code, let me set up a workspace for my PWA Kit. Open folder, going to my drive where I want to have my workspace. Let me create a new folder, let us say PWA. I'm gonna have PWA here. Go inside and select the folder. So like SFRA or Site Genesis, we do not need to clone any GitHub repository URL here, right? There is nothing to clone. So since it is an app-like experience, you need to install the PWA Kit in your system. So let us see how to install that. Go to terminal, new terminal. So make sure this is pointing to the command prompt instead of PowerShell. So now I am in the PWA folder, right? And the node version that you need to have is anything above 16.0 will work. So currently I'm using 16.19.1. If you are using version 14 or 15, you may not see the PWA Kit working properly in your system. So make sure it is 16 or later versions, not the earlier versions. Now the command that you can use to install the PWA Kit in your system is npx /salesforce /pwa -kit -create -app @latest. Okay, so @latest is optional, but Salesforce recommends using the version, right? We should mention the version, otherwise sometimes you may get unexpected results and your PWA Kit may not work properly in your system. So this is the command that you need to use to create a PWA Kit app in your system. So hitting enter. So it will ask you whether you want to set up the PWA Kit you are using your own Commerce Cloud instance, your own Commerce Cloud sandbox, or you want to set up a demo Commerce Cloud sandbox. For example, if you don't have any sandbox, right, where you can install the PWA Kit and explore what it is, so in those cases you can go with the retail app with demo Commerce Cloud instance. So it will install a demo PWA Kit in your system, right, and you do not need any sandbox for this. But if you want to link your PWA Kit to your sandbox, meaning you are doing any data changes in your, for example, you are adding a new category in your sandbox and you want to see that getting reflected on the PWA Kit, then you need to go with your own Commerce Cloud instance and follow the setup instructions. Now, for now, the retail app using your own Commerce Cloud instance. So this is the option that I'm going to use because I want to link my PWA Kit to my sandbox. So I'm selecting this. So I have selected the retail app using your own Commerce Cloud instance. So the next question it is asking is, do you wish to use template extensibility? So you can choose to yes. It will allow you to extend your React templates for further customizations. So I'm selecting yes here. So what is the name of your project? You can give any name. For example, I am giving Headless Webinar. Right, I'm giving, you can choose to have any name. I'm giving Headless Webinar as a name. And what is the URL for your Commerce Cloud instance? Right, so this is where we need to use the details that we have noted earlier. So this is my Commerce Cloud instance URL. You need to provide everything till salesforce.com, including the protocol. Again, if you are using the POD sandboxes, then it has to be till demandware.net. So I'm using this and pasting it here. So this is my Commerce Cloud URL. And what is your SLAS client ID? So this is the ID that you have generated earlier. So I'm gonna enter this client ID. And what is your site ID in the business manager? So what is my site ID here? Refarc is my site ID. I'm copying this Refarc. Refarc is my site ID. And what is your Commerce API organization ID in the business manager? So organization ID we have copied earlier from my business manager. So I'm gonna enter the same here, right? FECOMZYU 001. And what is your Commerce API short code in the business manager? So my short code here is that this one. Even this one I got from my business manager, entering it here. Now that's it. We have entered all the details that is required for the setup. Now it will take maybe 1 or 2 minutes to complete the setup, and it will install all the details in my system. Okay, we are done with the installation. So we have successfully generated a project that is Retail React app. Now go inside. See, if you look at it, there is a folder got created here, Retail React app. So go inside that folder and run the command npm start. So this will start the React application in your system, and I'm just clicking npm entering npm start, and that will open a window in your browser where your app is getting built. Now if you look at it, see, it is running in localhost 3000 port, right? So currently this is running in my system. Whatever we are seeing here is front end, right? Because if it is a back end, we need a we should be seeing the sandbox URL here. So we are seeing the front end here, which is running in my local host, right? And in case of the real-time scenarios, this is where you can use the managed runtime to host this front end. So currently it is running in my local host, but we can also configure it to use either, if you want to go with your own server, we can use Apache Tomcat or any other server, something similar to that, or we can also go with the managed runtime. And keep in mind, the managed runtime, it only supports the React based applications at this point. For example, you have selected the front end to be like Flutter, Angular, or any other technology, then managed runtime is not a best option for you. It is currently supporting only React because PWA Kit is built on React. So React is the front end framework in case of PWA Kit. If you are going with your own front end framework, then managed runtime may not suit for you. And once the initial loading is done, you can see the page is getting refreshed here, and that will open the PWA Kit storefront for us. Yep, so this is the PWA Kit storefront, and this is the home page. Let me also open, see, I also have the Refarc site in the same sandbox. So now let me also open the Refarc. Okay, so this is the Refarc reference application where most of you are already aware of it and have hands-on. And so here you are seeing the categories like demo, shop in store, things of that nature. The similar categories we are also seeing here. So now this PWA Kit is actually connected to the Refarc site in my business manager. So you will not see any new site here. The site which is already created, this is using both SFRA, both Refarc and the PWA Kit here. So now you can go on, once you have the PWA kit installed in your system, you can go and see and try to add the item to the cart and see how the wish list is working, how the checkout is working, things of this nature. And if you place any orders here, those orders will actually get placed in the business manager, and you can go and see them like a regular order, like SFRA orders. So that is about the PWA kit setup. So it is very simple. You do not need to clone any code. All you need to do is make sure your node version is correct and you are running the command @salesforce/PWA kit create app at latest, right? That is the only command that you need to run, and that will install the PWA kit in your system. And of course you need to have these details to set up the PWA kit in your system. So that is about the PWA kit setup. Hope you can also try in your systems and try to set up the PWA kit and explore how it is working and how it is different from SFRA, things of that nature. And now you can ask me a question. See, this is the SFRA site which is running in the cloud, right? Here both front end and back end both are tightly integrated. For example, if the backend is, for example, if SFCC is down or under maintenance, we will see the entire site going down, right? And here the front end is running in my local, and only the data that is required here, for example, these categories, this data is coming from the backend, that is still the Salesforce Commerce Cloud. So let us continue. So now we have installed the PWA kit, and let us see how the PWA kit is different from SFRA. The very first thing that you need to keep in mind is that, see, the SFRA is not a replacement. The PWA kit is not a replacement for the SFRA, right? So Salesforce does not did not mention that it is PWA kit is a replacement for the SFRA. Depending on the need, you can go with either SFRA or the PWA kit. So there are certain situations where you will need to choose the SFRA or where you will need to choose the PWA kit, that we will discuss in a minute. So for now, let us see the differences between the fundamental differences between the SFRA and the PWA kit. So with respect to the architecture, if you look at it, in case of SFRA or the site genesis for that matter, the HTML that we will see on the storefront, that is actually generated by your server, right? So the HTML got generated from your server, and then it is passed over to the client, which is nothing but your browser, and browser will render that information, HTML, right? So but in case of PWA kit, the HTML will get generated at the client side itself, not at the server side, right? So the HTML will get generated by your React using the data supplied by the Salesforce Commerce Cloud. Now with respect to the technology, if you look at the SFRA, we are using the JavaScript, jQuery, things of that nature for the with respect to the front end JavaScript, but in case of the PWA kit, it is built on the React. So keep in mind, it is not mandatory for us to go with React always. For example, if you prefer to choose to go with Flutter, you can go ahead with it, but PWA kit is built on React. You need to replace the front end with Flutter, and backend will remain as is. And with respect to the user experience, as we discussed, it is server rendered. It is a traditional website, right? Like the RefArc, the user experience will be like the website experience, and we are used to it already. And in case of the PWA kit, it is a progressive web app, and it will be like the app-like experience. So let us talk about what is this app-like experience, right? See, if you look at the RefArc, I have RefArc here and I have the PWA kit here, right? Now let me go here and see, here you are getting an additional option called install React app, but this option will not be there in case of RefArc. Let us say install RefArc. We are not seeing this option if you look at it, right? Now I will go ahead and install it, install React app, and it is asking for some confirmation, and then clicking on install. See now what happened. See now it is, I'm not in browser now. Now I'm in an app. So let me close it. Since I have installed the app, that created one shortcut on my desktop as well. If I click on this icon, it will open like an app here, and it will show me my PWA Kit application, where I can go and browse the website, browse the application, something similar to an website, right? So this is nothing but the app like experience. And also whenever I click on the links, the pages are not getting, okay, so whenever I click on the links, the pages are not getting reloaded. If you look at it, right, only the content is getting reloaded here, right? Only the content is getting reloaded. So once I refresh the page, it will reload the page only once, that is from the server. And once it is loaded from the server, next time onwards it will load the content just from the client side, and it will not reload the page. So something similar to an app. Okay, so that is nothing but the app like experience. And if you want to uninstall this app, you can go to the control center, right? So we have the app installed in our system, right? So go to the uninstall app, and you can see the retail React app got installed here. And if you want to remove the desktop icon that got created earlier, go and click on uninstall, and that will remove the icon from your desktop. Okay, so let us continue. So that is like the app like experience. And with respect to the customizations, if you look at SFRA or Site Genesis, whatever the customizations that you are doing, right, we need to keep even the backend in mind, because both backend and frontend both are running in the same server, right? So if you are adding more burden on the front end, that will obviously impact even the backend as well with respect to the performance. But in case of the PWA Kit, it's a headless architecture again, where the front end is separated from the back end, right? And these two are running in two different servers. So now, without making any impact to the back end, you are free to do whatever the customizations you would like to on the front end, and that will not impact the back end at all, right? Because these two are two different applications and running in two different servers. And with respect to the performance, so as we discussed, the SFRA is the server side rendering, and the PWA Kit is the client side rendering. So even SFRA comes with very optimized performance, right? There is no doubt about it. But still, the content is getting generated from the server. The HTML is getting generated from the server, and in case of PWA Kit, it is client side rendering, right? So you will obviously see a little bit of latency in SFRA when compared to the PWA Kit. And offline functionality, if you look at, for example, Amazon app, whenever you try to open Amazon app and your internet was down, you will see some dog message, dog image with no internet message, things of that nature, right? So that kind of functionality is not available in SFRA. For example, if internet is down, or if SFCC is under maintenance, you will see the generic the browser standard error messages, right? But in case of the PWA Kit, you can build the Amazon like experiences, so you can build your own custom offline messages. And since it is an app like experience, you can also have the notifications, like the notifications that we get from the regular mobile apps that we use. And the one more important point here is that to install the retail React app in our desktop, I did not go to the Play Store or any other, I did not download any software to install the retail React app. So I can just go ahead and install it from my browser, and you can do the same thing even in your mobile apps. You do not need to go to any Play Store, and all the updates are automatic. You do not need to go to Play Store and update the app. So you just need to pin the website, install it, and pin it to your home page, and all the updates are automatic, and you do not need to do anything as such here. Okay, now let us talk about Why headless? So we discussed about what is headless, what is PWA Kit, and how to install the PWA Kit and how it is different from SFRA. And let us talk about in briefly why headless commerce or the PWA Kit. So the PWA Kit stands for the Progressive Web App, right? So what it means is that it provides the app-like experience. So we have seen, so we can install the app, right, without going to the Play Store or any other, or without downloading any software. We can install it, and updates are automatic, and it provides the offline capabilities which is missing in the traditional website approach. And even with respect to the performance, it is the client side rendering where you will get the optimized performance and quick time to value. So if you look at it, here there could be two different teams. One is the backend and the other one is front end, and these two teams can work independent of each other and they can work concurrently, so which will improve the time to market, which will drastically reduce the time to market. So we can go to the market, we can launch a website very quickly compared to the traditional approach. And since, for example, today you opted for React, right, as a front-end framework, so backend is fixed, it is always Salesforce Commerce Cloud. For front-end you opted for React. Now tomorrow, for example, you want to try with a different technology which is emerging in the market, right? You can do that without touching the backend at all, right? So you can try with different options, different frameworks, right? You can focus on innovation, then rebuilding the website every single time whenever you want to move to a different technology. And the independent scaling, again, because of the decouple, right? So the front end is decoupled from the back end, right? So now these two applications are running in two different servers, and they can scale they can scale independent of each other depending on the incoming traffic. And with respect to the performance, again, it is in case of headless commerce, it is the client side rendering, so we can expect the optimized performance when compared to the traditional approach. And even it empowers the developer, right? So if you want to try with different front-end technologies, right, you can go ahead and try without and you do, as a developer, if you want to work on the front end, you do not need to have much knowledge on the Salesforce Commerce Cloud as well, right? Because you will be focusing only on the front end and dealing with the data, but you are not going to code anything in Salesforce Commerce Cloud itself. And the omni-channel experiences. So now, for example, you want to enable the commerce. It may be the website, it may be a mobile app, right? And it may be a smartwatch, it may be a kiosk, it may be a social channel. It doesn't matter where you want to enable the commerce, right? The backend is always Salesforce Commerce Cloud, and the front end you can customize depending on the channel where you want to enable the commerce, right? Because only the front end will change, the back end remain always same. So with that said, we have covered so the PWA Kit and Headless Commerce overview, and so in the next slide is Q&A session. So I will talk about these references. The next slide is Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please note them down, and we will open the chart for you. You can put down those questions there. So now, with respect to the references, there is a trailhead link which talks about what is PWA Kit and what is managed runtime. You can go through this and you can find something similar information what we have discussed in today's session. And there is the developer documentations. One is on the PWA Kit and the other one is on the B2C Commerce API, the SCAPI, basically the Storefront Commerce API, and the other one talks about the PWA Kit. So how to set up, so the second one talks about how to set up the PWA Kit, basically talks about whatever the commands that we have used, and the third one is it talks about the SCAPI, the headless approach, and the fourth one is for the Wocapi Commerce API, the Wocapi reference, Open Commerce API. And guys, if you have any questions even after this session, alright, regarding the headless or anything as such, I have provided my LinkedIn URL here. Please feel free to reach out to us here and we will try to answer your questions at the earliest. And with that said, we are moving to the Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat. Okay, so the question is, can we implement PWA headless with SGJC controller? Is SFRA is must? Is there any risk with phased rollouts with SGJC controller? How cache is implemented in frontend? Is there any service level caches in SCAPI? How remote includes can be implemented? How can we maintain the SFRA SEO URL format? Okay, like we have CLP, like, okay, how we can achieve this? See, okay, so there are so many questions within this. Let me try to answer one by one. See, there is no issue with the phased rollouts if you are in SGJC or in SFRA, right? So SFRA or SGJC, so they're completely into different architectures, right? So if you are trying to migrate to PWA from SGJC or from SFRA, the level of effort that you are going to spend will be more or less same, right? And you can go with the phased rollouts, and this is one of the important feature provided by the Salesforce with respect to the headless commerce, right? So for example, you have the SGJC website or SFRA website where you have only where you want to migrate only, for example, home page to headless, right? You can still do that. Okay, so phased rollouts are allowed in headless architecture, and I would say you have to be little careful because you have both the things here, right? You have a mix, you have a mix, right? You have both the headless, and also you have the traditional approach website. Both are running, so you have to be little bit careful while implementing this approach, just to make sure nothing is breaking. But phased rollouts are possible. And is there any service level cache? Yes, we do. We do have the service level caches caching for the SCAPI, and there is no need of remote includes here, right? Because remote includes comes in the ISMLs in case of the site genesis or the refer. Here there is no concept of remote includes, and you will always be getting the data whatever is required from your backend only using the SCAPI or WCAPI. And how can we maintain so with respect to the SFRA SEO URL format, so React provides the routing mechanism. I think there is some routes.js something where you can have all the routes defined, route SEO URLs defined. We can go with that. And can we get this PPT if possible? If not, at least trailhead links. Can we share the PPT? A trailhead. Okay, yeah, so we'll provide the trailhead link. That is how we can share the PPT. Okay, any other questions? Yes, so for creating client ID, do we need any admin permissions? So the answer is yes. So let me share my screen once again. So in the account manager, you need to have some special privileges to be able to access the SLAS admin UI, right? So you will not be able to access it by default. Okay, so you need to have the SLAS shopper admin API permission enabled in your account manager. Then only you will be able to get into the screen. Otherwise, you will not be able to. Okay, and Okay, is there a way for us to see the base code for backend OCAPI SCAPI API calls for PWA similar to SG or SGAC? Yes. So you can see the code here. So we have installed the app here. So from here you can trace down and see all the code that from where it is fetching the data and how the rendering is happening, things of that nature that we can see from here. Okay, can we get this recording video please? Yes, we will be sharing this recording video. We'll share the yeah. If you have a few minutes, could you please explain on creating the client ID again? So what URL use it to log in to PWA console? Okay, so let me take 1 more minute and show you how to do that. See, in the PPT itself, I have provided one URL. Okay, so where there is a placeholder for the shortcode, and you need to take this URL, and you can also find this URL in the reference links that I have provided here. So just paste this URL here, and here the shortcode that you have received in from your business manager. All right, so that shortcode you need to replace it here. So once you replace the shortcode, your URL will look like this. Hit enter, and that will take you to the account manager. That will take you to the SLES admin UI login, and click on the login here, and that will take you to the account manager login page. If you are already logged in the same browser, that will directly take you to the screen, the SLES admin UI. Here you need to go to the clients and click on add client, and all the details you can keep as it is here. The only thing that you need to do is enter the tenant. The tenant is nothing but ZYEU under -001. Right, this is your tenant. In fact, you can also get the tenant from your organization ID, the last part here, this one. Right, this is your tenant. Just enter your tenant and click on submit. That's it. That will give you the client ID, and that is the client ID you need to use while doing the setup for PWA Kit. Hope that answers your question. Okay, so or we need to update the URL endpoints inside frontend to interact with different BA services? The answer is yes, but most of that is already taken care in the PWA Kit itself. Okay, so hardly we need to update any of the endpoints here. And just as a side note, even the hooks are supported, right? It's not directly something like OCAPI, even the hooks are supported. You can use the hooks if you want to do any customizations for your API response. So hard Salesforce exposing controller as service with same JWT authentication. Sorry, I'm not aware of it. Okay guys, thank you. Thanks for your time. Thanks for joining this session. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us over the LinkedIn. I have provided my LinkedIn URL in the presentation. Thank you. Thanks a lot.